Water, the final frontier. This is the voyages of humankind. Its 500-year mission to explore strange new problems with this world, to seek out new problems and new solutions, to boldly go where no human has been before. Humans have created a new world with our technological advances, one where resources and biodiversity is used up and thrown away every day. Humans need water to survive, yet treat it as an infinite resource, and don't hesitate to pollute it given the chance to make money. Water will be the most important resource in our future, bypassing even fossil fuels. Humans impact water resources every day in every corner of the world, from draining aquifers at extreme rates, to polluting it with industrial wastes, to polluting it with waste from food production.
China has historically created vast environmental problems that has devastated water resources in various ways. They've seen the loss of 28,000 rivers out of an estimated 50,000 in just the last 20 years. With the reasons attributed to statistical discrepancies, water and soil loss, and climate change. In many cases, their cultural acceptance of using water resources at any cost has created pollution problems at all levels, from the individual farmer all the way up to countrywide infrastructure. China is the first to develop and use aquaculture starting between 1066 and 256 BC. Carp fisheries established during the Zhou dynasty was used to feed the growing armies. China's people accept using any means necessary to raise food, including feeding their fish and shellfish with wastes from other animals being raised and also using human waste. China has very little regulation on food production or processing. That, coupled with how little of the food in the USA is actually inspected, creates opportunities for health problems related to the food we consume. So the next time you approach that fish in Wally World, back away slowly and then run like hell.
Unlike China, the United States has taken steps to protect the quality of its water by the passing of legislation. In 1972, the Clean Water Act was enacted. This act focused on pollution management, requiring effluent discharge into bodies of water to be treated to maintain chemical, physical, and biological integrity in the U.S. waters. The Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 also took contaminant management even further. This act was the first act to ensure that drinking water supplies were protected for human consumption. However, water quality is not the only concern for the U.S. Recently, with climate change, abundance of fresh water has become even of a greater concern. The U.S. depends on clean, reliable water to maintain human health, as well as for agriculture, energy production, recreation, and manufacturing. All of these stress the U.S. water resources, which is now even being further stressed by climate change. Climate change has affected precipitation patterns throughout the U.S. The western U.S. has been seeing this for the past 50 years via lengthy droughts and decreased snowpack. With less and less surface water available for consumption by the U.S., the use of groundwater reserves has grown. The largest freshwater aquifer, the U.S. Ogallala Aquifer, which supplies 27% of U.S. irrigated land with water and 82% of individuals living within that land with fresh drinking water, has been in decline since the 1940s. The Ogallala is not the only aquifer seeing these declines. Aquifers all around the U.S. are also declining. Changes in precipitation patterns have decreased aquifers, making it clear that U.S. water resource abundance is a major concern for water resources.
Similar to the U.S., Brazil is heavily reliant upon their water resources. Having built their first hydropower facility in 1901, the utilization of water for domestic, industrial, and economic benefits have propelled Brazil into leading markets for water management. However, Brazil faces two major problems with public consumption of water. The first being unreliable access to water from cold communities. The northeast of Brazil, where 2 million rural families live in poverty without access to piped water and sanitation facilities, along with large urban areas, such as the favelas, where occupants do not have clean sources of water and live in extreme poverty, where water runoff and from various pollution sources has created great obstacles in the treatment and contaminants for anyone downstream. The second issue is the contamination from sewage, which undermines public health and living conditions. In the year 2000, less than 10% of wastewater coming from Brazil's urban area was treated. Beyond domestic consumption of Brazil's inhabitants, the utilization of Brazil's fresh water supplies has been surrounded by controversy. With the Amazon covering roughly 48% of Brazil, it contains 75% of the country's fresh water. With such a demand for electricity, mega dam complexes such as the Belo Monte are constructed, diverting large sections of the river and adding pollutants. This in turn affects the ability of the 1% of the population who lives in the Amazon basin that relies upon the river system for fishing, trade, and health. This has led to the displacement of thousands of indigenous peoples and cast a shadow on Brazil's government regarding action, conservation, and humanitarian impacts.
Better food and health safety regulations that are globally enforced by the different countries will ensure health and food safety standards for all countries concerned. By educating the public about what they're really eating, we can force or push countries into better food safety regulations. The biggest problem to overcome is that China doesn't see using animal and human waste as being something wrong. By not purchasing the imported food that is grown this way, it will affect them economically and hopefully get them to question their methods and processes.
I propose the U.S. solves its water consumption issues via legislation forcing water conservation. The average U.S. citizen uses 800 gallons of fresh water a day, where 156 gallons are used for domestic purposes, in which 38% is just flushed down the toilet. Legislation that forces new construction to install ultra-low fixtures in all buildings, as well as reclamation systems in all commercial and industrial buildings, will decrease domestic water consumption. The reclamation systems can use reclaimed water to water lawns, flush toilets, and other domestic purposes outside of first quality water, which is human consumption. Although ultra-low fixtures and reclamation systems are a start to the vast amount of fresh water used in the U.S., agriculture processes involve more water yet. To solve this issue, highly efficient irrigation is needed in our agricultural system. Also, crops that are increasingly water intensive should be moved to areas where precipitation falls at greater abundances. However, this will require a change in American lifestyle, which is often not taken well by the individual. Though without these steps, the U.S. may eventually have to be forced into lifestyle changes due to decreasing water supplies. So, the U.S. must take steps now to enforce water conservation.
Brazil's economic boom has influenced and changed the standard of living investments for many of Brazil's domestic problems. Since the 1970s, Brazil has made great strides in improving the utilization and sanitization of water. The first step was creation of the National Water Law, which took place in the constitutional reform of 1988, where the responsibility to water resource management rested on the government. The reformed constitution also established a distinction between federally controlled water for rivers across state boundaries and state-controlled water for rivers and groundwater that remain completely within state boundaries. Today, 25 of Brazil's 26 states and the federal district have adopted legislation to modernize water resource management, expanding access to reliable water across the nation. To continue Brazil's economic and domestic prosperity, actions in the regulation and utilization of water will need to be further addressed by both the Brazilian people and the government. Brazil has the unfounded ability to lead the global world in renewable resources and reduce the status quo of environmental exploitation that has plagued our planet and Brazil. By expanding water treatment facilities and using smarter water transportation and storage techniques, those occupants who are so heavily affected in the poor communities can begin to close the inequality gap. The controversies in the Amazon basin are far-reaching. However, with the utilization of other green industries such as wind and biomass, Brazil can construct less dam complexes and halt the harmful altercations of the Amazon. Utilization of more modern water treatment plants, along with the reduction in industrial pollution, is one of the only ways Brazil can increase the water quality and access for some 2 million people living inside the bounds of poverty. With large steps being taken by the Brazilian government to increase the standard of living, with the coming Summer Olympics and World Cup, investors will have more than one opportunity to help mend the gap between haves and have-nots.
Because of all the goose shit everywhere.